everyone. Welcome to our podcast. I'm Shermley, the Vice President of Science Society Club, and I'm here with...
Hello, I'm Justin, Shermley's assistant. Welcome to our podcast.
As you may see, our previous hosts are not here today. They may be exploring another universe, or finding the mysterious Atlantis, or even better, battling out in a zombie apocalypse.
If you know what we're talking about, thanks for staying tuned with our previous podcasts. But if not, that's okay. Welcome. We've already released 3 podcasts prior to this, so if you're interested, check out our YouTube or Instagram.
So, Justin, what will we be talking about today? You okay?
Yeah, sorry. It's just a little stressed, which happens to be today's topic, stress, and how to handle it. We figured stress is something familiar to all of us as university students. You know, times are tough. We're in week 9, homework's piling up, and final exams are not far behind. So, you know, we thought we'd explore stress and give some tips on how to manage it as a university student.
Right, and I hope this podcast will help you manage your stress.
So, Shamili, tell us a bit about stress.
Well, stress is something we all face, and it's our body's natural reaction to emotional or physical pressure, from everything from cramming to a test to working up too much in a given amount of time.
Yeah, and it could also be things like, getting rejected by your crush or getting tortured for prolonged periods of time.
You okay?
Yeah, it's just things that we've all experienced before, that feeling where you're challenged and overwhelmed and just want to give up.
Right, so it's something more than an emotion. It's a physical response throughout the entire body. So short-term stress is actually good for your health. But stress that is too often or too long can be dangerous for your body. It can damage your brain, your organs, your cells and tissues. Pretty much everything.
Yeah, so it's kind of like water and oxygen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, even with stress, we need a certain amount to stay healthy.
Mm-hmm. Use stress.
Sorta, yeah.
Use stress.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. But anyway, too much of it and, too much of pretty anything, I guess, it's not good for you.
Yeah, that's true. So, for example, when we exercise, it's a short-term activation of stress, which is actually good for your immune system, for your heart, and even memory.
So, what exactly happens to our bodies when we experience stress?
Well, when our brain senses stress, it activates the autonomic nervous system. And this system has 2 other subsystems: sympathetic, fight or flight, or parasympathetic nervous system. And both these systems respond to stress and bring back to homeostasis. So when we experience stress, it directly activates the sympathetic nervous system, which signals the adrenaline gland to secrete hormones and communicates the presence of stress to the intestinal nervous system.
I see. So, firstly, you have adrenal glands, right, which release stress hormones into the bloodstream. You all ever watch Cells at Work. So, some of these hormones may sound familiar to you, such as, cortisol or adrenaline or norepinephrine, right? And the effects that these hormones cause is basically increased respiration, increased heart rate, increased blood pressure,
Yeah, as well as pupils being dilated, and then you're more aware of your situation and your surroundings.
Yeah, and going back to what you said about the intestinal nervous system, stress can actually affect that as well.
Right, yeah. It can cause disturbance in your natural rhythmic contractions in your intestines, and that can lead to irregular bowel movements and make your gut more sensitive to acid. And in fact, it can also lead to making you feel heartburns.
I see. So the sympathetic nervous system is kind of like the complete opposite of the parasympathetic nervous system.
Right. In sympathetic nervous system, the body prepares you for a fight or flight situation. So whether to attack the situation at hand or to run away from danger. But the parasympathetic nervous system would do the opposite. It would tell your body to stop releasing those hormones. It would tell your body to come back to homeostasis. And that is why often we hear that the parasympathetic nervous system is also known as the rest and digest system, in which, when we're sleeping or digestion or healing from wounds, this nervous system is at work.
Yeah, so it's like the much more chill of the two, right? Yeah. So like while we have been talking about, like imminent danger and fight or flight, right? We generally experience stressors that aren't necessarily caused by immediately dangerous situations, but may cause us immense stress nonetheless, right?
Like for example, makeup classes suddenly in the middle of the week, or weird sleep cycles we have because of exams.
Yeah, or just having finding out that the deadline of your homework was last night and you forgot to submit it, or getting rejected, so on and so on, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, well, we've been talking a lot about generic stressors in our lives we face on a daily basis. So what are some of the stressors we face as university students?
Well, as students, I guess one of the primary stressors we probably all face is, stress from wanting to do well on homework and exams and basically performing well academically. Yeah.
Right. So today we will be telling you some tips on how to manage stress as university students.
First pro tip for managing stress is to be prepared, right? So, what's one of the best ways to be prepared? Get a planner.
Right.
With one of these bad boys, you can stay ahead of all your assignment deadlines and exam days, right? Don't be that person that keeps asking the Ajahn when the homework is due. You know you are!
So our next pro tip is to take good notes. And everyone has a different note-taking style, right?
Yeah, some people I know just scribble on the lecture handouts. Some people make an exact copy of everything the Ajahn has said, right? And some people just don't take notes at all, which we don't recommend.
Yeah, we do recommend that you take some form of notes. And that can be physical notes or digital notes.
My iPad!
So in terms of physical notes, there's many different methods you can follow for note-taking. There's like the Cornell method, the outlining method, the mind map method, the charting sentence. Like there's plenty of note-taking methods there. But do what suits you best. So whichever subject you're studying in, whichever method is the best for you in that, do that. Don't follow other people on that term.
Yeah, and if you're like me and your handwriting kind of depresses you, you could also take digital notes, right? Which can be much easier to organize and aggregate, right?
So you don't need to carry all of these everywhere you go.
Yeah, good point, right? And they can also allow you to take notes much faster if you have a decent typing speed.
Right.
Right. And also, like, another argument I hear for physical notes is that whenever you're taking math courses, you pretty much have to take physical notes to write equations and stuff. But that's not always entirely true, if you're fast with your fingers, right, and some latex, right, you could use a note-taking website like Notion, which has built-in latex support. I think it's some cousin of latex called KTeX or something like that, to have equations in your digital notes, which is pretty nice. And I think Google Docs has the same feature, right?
And you can always put in both your digital notes and physical notes together. So like at times when you're making notes in your Google Docs, and then you can have like a screenshot of your actual notes of the equations if like latex doesn't suit you.
Yeah. In conclusion, having something to fall back on that you can trust will save you the trouble of, having to rewatch recordings, right? It'll give you ability to quickly double check your understanding of the material, and it lets you quickly review for exams, right?
And it's the best thing is like it's your notes, so you know what you've written, and it's like a summary of what the lecturer has given. It's not everything that they have said in the entire 2-hour period, so it's helps you prepare for exams.
Yeah. Speaking of reviewing for final exams, right, that takes us to our next point. Be sure to prepare well for exams.
Right, and this is where your trusty notes come in hand.
Yeah, if you have digital notes, you can summarize them and merge them all into one great note bible, right, which you use to review or in open book exams.
Right. But in cases of physical notes, you'll be in this chaotic mess.
Yeah, so aside from finding ways to handle stress academically, we also need some more general methods to handle stress in our lives, right?
Yeah, that's actually very important because we need to turn off the stress response in our body at times, or else chronic activation of the sympathetic nervous system, as mentioned before, would lead to fatal damage to your body.
Yeah. So what are some common ways of relieving stress?
Well, personally for me, I would go for music, food, and sleep. That's pretty simple, but works for me. And I would recommend that for you guys as well. Do what works for you. Some of my friends go for a walk, a run, meditation, yoga. There are plenty of stress relievers out there, so do what works for you. And how about for you?
Well, me personally, I either, take a short gaming break, right?
I wonder how that short is.
Not that long, right? Well, I take a short gaming break, I stress eat sometimes. I'm not sure if that's healthy, but it makes me feel better. Right? And occasionally curl up into a ball and cry for 20 minutes. Yeah, and speaking of breaks, right, do take breaks. More effort does not always equal more work done or more productivity, right? Like, for example, you could be rowing a boat upstream and it would look like you're doing a lot of work and you look, super muscular, right? But you're not getting very far, are you, right? And one of the most important breaks of all is sleep.
It's very important to get enough sleep, and sleep allows your body to take some rest, allows you to heal wounds. It does every other metabolic work during your sleep. And it's important that you get enough amount of sleep, like 6 to 8 hours of sleep a day, because our brain, like every other body part, has metabolic waste. And if you don't give your brain enough time to clean that up, then you will be just piling up a lot of metabolic waste in your brain. So do make sure you get enough of sleep.
Yeah, and to add on to that, right, sleep is basically just the general cure-all for all of our issues, right? I'm pretty sure we've heard your brain is a sponge line somewhere before in our lives. It's true, right? Getting enough sleep helps you remember what you've learned. It gives you a clearer head. It makes it easier to think, and you have less stress overall. Unless you sleep through your exams. So keep that in mind, right?
Right, and at the end of the day, we all have different schedules. Some people work at night, some people work in the day, and so you're sleeping at different periods of the day. And it's important that at the end of the day, you still get enough sleep in those 24 hours. You're spending at least 6 to 8 hours of time sleeping, because your body needs rest and you need this.
All right, we've reached the end of our podcast. Thanks for sticking with us the entire time.
And what we want you to take away from this podcast is that you will face stressful situations throughout your life. And it's important for your brain and your body is how you respond to stress, and give your body enough time to recover from that.
Yeah, like if you view stressful situations as obstacles that you can control and overcome, rather than some invincible threat, right? You're going to have a much happier and healthier life, both in the short run and the long run.
And now that we're near the end of the podcast, we'd like to hear from you guys how you handle stress as university students, and whether or not you prefer to take physical or digital notes. And on average, how long do you sleep?
We'd also like to see some of your favorite notes, so send them in if you have some. We promise we won't steal them, unless they're good.
Thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed this podcast and found it useful. We'll see you guys again in another podcast. Till then, don't take stress. Bye-bye.
Bye.